Salutations everyone, Dreamforge here with another build guide for Battle Brothers. Today I want to show you the build of the Legionaire. Pretty cool fighter, kinda unique what he does. So he basically runs around the battlefield, he's a tank-ish. He's not like really tanky, but he has a shield, so in the beginning he is a tank. He stuns enemies. So enemies that are particularly dangerous, you know, those raiders that have two-handed weapons or flails, you can just go then and then smack them or bonk them on the head and stun them. And the cool thing about stuns in Battle Brothers, if the target isn't immune, like Orc Warriors for example, you can stun indefinitely, basically. As long as you have fatigue to stun enemies, you can stun them, and that all the time. There's just one problem. Stunning is, as I mentioned, very fatigue heavy. Your bro that you take as a Legionnaire, he needs some fatigue. This is probably a background or a bro you have that is a little bit better than a soldier, so he has a little bit better stats. Defense is not so important, he can have a 0, that's fine. He has a shield for the beginning, that's absolutely okay. But you want to have some fatigue, maybe a farmhand, maybe you have a very early wild man, they can have a lot of that too. Militiamen should be fine, you know, maybe Butcher that roll really well. But you want to aim for, I would say, at least 100. This is, most backgrounds can have this, but everything that goes above that goes a long way. The skill tree. You don't have to have a lot of stuff, there are just one or two things that absolutely are necessary, and the rest is a little bit what you like. It even starts at the beginning, at the first skill point. So does his melee attack suck, right? Maybe he has 50 melee attack in the beginning. Then I would actually take as a first level fast adaptation, you have to hit. If you don't hit, then you waste a lot of fatigue and you don't stun. And this is the purpose of this build. If that is not the case, if he has a lot of melee attack, but he lacks in HP, then Colossus would be my first pick here. Regardless, those should be more or less your first two picks. Then Gifted, obviously you want to pump your stats high so you can actually hit stuff. And then very early on you pick this, Mace Mastery. So when I put up this window here to explain this a little bit. So this is the skill knockout you want to use. This is on most maces you find in the beginning, even I think like the wooden stick or something has that. You see 25 fatigue. So taking this would bring this down by 25%. And what it does normally, it only has a 75% chance to hit. So it's actually possible that you hit the target even on the head, but you don't stun. And this happens, I feel like, way more often than 25%, you know? So I will take this to make just sure that he really can fulfill his role and he can actually stun those very dangerous enemies. So this is, I would take this as soon as I can take that. I mean, sure, you can take a lot of things now, right? I like to take dodge. This is a nimble build to some degree. This gives him a lot of defense. You can take this too, obviously, right? Field Expert is very good for controlling, sometimes kicking an enemy back. It saves the life of a bro. That just makes them more durable. Then I would of course take Nimble at some point. If that dude, that Legionnaire is still alive, I mean, they will die out at some point anyways. Underdog is obviously a very good pick too. And if you're burning out of fatigue, even with this setup here and putting points in that, and then you can of course take Recover maybe even, or you feel like you're not getting to places on the battlefield fast enough, maybe because you fight a lot in the desert or you have fights in the swamp. God, who fights in the swamp? I hate that. But you know, sometimes this happens, you get ambushed or whatever. Then of course this is very good. This saves you some fatigue and it gives you opportunity to move around the battlefield. If you have a very good bro that stuns a lot, that is actually hitting things, then this is maybe not absolutely necessary. This is an early game build that is there to help you getting to the end game. That helps you surviving tough fights in the early game. This has a very good synergy with the rogue. That guide will be coming up in the next days because they stun obviously, and stun gives a big bonus to Kotal Daggers, Heart Strike, but I will talk about that in different build. So this build is very useful, but I wouldn't normally have more than 3 of those. The last part you can do what you want. If you have a very shitty bro that dies a lot, then of course 9 lives is your best friend. Alright, skill points. I had to talk a little bit more about them because this is not so intuitive. It's a very specific build for a specific purpose. So this is very early on. You can even use those things you normally only render because they don't really do a lot of damage, but they just don't have to. Give him a wooden shield, just some armor, a decent helm maybe for the beginning. You don't want to go into melee without protection. Just like any weapon that can stun. This kind of thing, even a wooden stick is something you could take, but I wouldn't. It actually doesn't do any damage at all. Yeah, and then after like a couple of days, a couple of raider fighters, this is in the end a nimble build, right? So you want to give him like nimble gear, kind of like this. And then I just thought the heater shield, why not? Because it gives +5 melee defense. It's a bit more heavy, but it's just 4 fatigue. This is a very good weapon. Of course, some of the southern states maces are really good too. Always a dagger and a knife to get that juicy gear from, you know, those leaders and those hedge knights. I would never pump a lot of HP, I wouldn't, because you want to have fatigue. Hit is very important, you want to level this almost always. Melee defense is obviously important, but it's not that important because you just stun the enemy and you don't get hit. And then you have a shield, so you have some protection there. So you absolutely prioritize fatigue and melee attack. So you don't want to have like 25 resolve. If you can push it to 35, 40, then you should be fine. But of course, if you can level melee defense, this is always good, but it's not that high of a priority as hitting and having sufficient fatigue. Those are the 2 ones you want to aim for. Then you just pick the higher ones. You get a +5 HP roll, great, I just picked that. You get a +5 range defense, great, I picked that. You get +3 melee defense, great, I take that. Again, you shouldn't take a bro that is too low in the beginning, like everything under 100, I wouldn't really consider taking them. They fatigue out very fast. I mean, just to put this into perspective, if you don't have mace mastery, right, hitting 2 times with a knockout, maybe the second time hits and actually stuns, right, you burn through 50 fatigue. And then maybe you moved almost at 60 fatigue. That is a lot. Right, this is just 1 turn, you only get 15 back. You just have to put this into perspective, how much fatigue you just can't have enough. This is in the end an early to mid-game-ish build. Oh yeah, this is one thing I would mention, how you use him. Dangerous targets like 2-handers, leaders with 2-handed weapons, maybe pikes. You want to get them into situations where they hit an enemy without a shield. That's not always possible, but this is, I would say, the main goal. You can use a lot of them, 3 or 4 even, if you actually have those bros, a lot of farmhands. Maybe you start with Peasant Militia or something. You shouldn't forget, those dudes, they don't do as much damage, you know, because you use a lot of this and knockout doesn't really hit as hard. You can use obviously the normal attack, but then you don't stun. And then it's the question, why you built that bro as a Legionnaire in the first place, right? I just have to explain this because I don't see a lot of players or videos that actually utilize this. So they just want to go in and kill stuff, which is absolutely fine. But stunning and stuff like that is, I would say, maybe not that necessary if you play on lower difficulties. But again, if you play, as I do, play on Iron Man, highest difficulties, then 2 of those blows, they can postpone one enemy, that pike that would almost one-shot every turn one of your guys. But guess what? You stunned him, he doesn't do anything. If you have suggestions, maybe you have a Legionnaire, or you maybe call him Stunner or Stunbot or whatever. Maybe you build him differently. Then just let me know in the comments. I'm always looking forward to improve builds that I use myself. That's basically it for me. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you use that Legionnaire to big success that push you maybe further. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you are right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.